The original Mortal Kombat was released in arcades back in October of 1992. I remember it very, very well. There was an arcade just beside my school, and I used to go every day to see the new games. I'll never forget the day the arcade got this game, as there was a lineup to get into the bloody place. Since I've been going for a couple of years at that point in time, I managed to squeeze past the line, and I will never forget the very first thing I saw. It was two people beating the living crap out of each other, one with Scorpion, the other with Sub-Zero, and there was blood. My mind was officially blown. And the rest really is history. Mortal Kombat was unique for a lot of reasons. For starters, there was the violence and gore. Sure, Street Fighter II was the more technical fighter, and I don't really think anyone can argue that fact, but Mortal Kombat's gimmick allowed a lot of people to take notice, and once they got their hands on the actual game, they found there was a lot more here than they realized. One of the biggest differences was the fact that Mortal Kombat featured a block button, and the reason for this was that players could block while they remain on the offensive. They didn't need to press in the opposite direction. Blocking also had clip damage, meaning you couldn't just stay in one spot and block forever, and it really did feel differently than Street Fighter II. MK also had a really unique button layout on the arcade cabinet, with the 5 buttons looking like an X. There were high and low punches and kicks, and the middle button was the block button. There were 7 playable characters: Johnny Cage, Sonya, Kano, Liu Kang, Sub-Zero, Scorpion, and Raiden. Each character had the same core moveset: uppercut, leg sweep, roundhouse, etc. Each character had between 2 and 3 special moves. Take my main man Sub-Zero here for example. He could perform a freeze projectile attack and a slide. That's it. Everything else was exactly the same as all the other basic attacks the other characters possessed. Special moves were also input using tapping techniques, which was quite unusual for that particular point in time. Instead of circular joystick motions, which admittingly some characters did use here, the vast majority required you to tap the joystick. Let's take Scorpion's spear attack as an example, which was back low punch, or Liu Kang's fireball attack, which was forward high kick. That really separated the core feel of Mortal Kombat compared to Street Fighter and the other SNK fighters that were out also at that point in time. Mortal Kombat also introduced, as far as I can remember at least, the concept of juggling. I could be wrong. If you were quick enough and skilled, you could pin your opponent to one side of the back walls and juggle them for just a little period of time with several moves while they were completely defenseless. The biggest difference though between Mortal Kombat and all the other fighting games was the inclusion of a finishing move or a fatality. Whichever player won the best of 3 rounds would be allowed to perform a finishing move on their opponent. Fatalities were extremely gory and were inputted using, again, tapping techniques. Case in point, Sub-Zero, who would rip the head off of his opponent by executing forward high punch close to the opponent. When parents witnessed these fatalities, they banned their kids from playing the game, which only made them want to play it that much more, and before you knew it, arcades everywhere had literally dozens of Mortal Kombat cabinets. The single-player game pits you against all 7 opponents, one after another, including your selected character via the famous mirror match. And then you have 3 endurance matches you need to complete before taking on the 4-armed Goro, and finally, Shang Tsung. Endurance matches were kind of unique for the time in that you had to fight 2 opponents one after another, each with their own unique health bar, while you retained the same health bar. There was also a mini-game called Test Your Might, where you had to tap on a couple of buttons in order to increase a meter, and the objective was to smash different types of minerals. Going back to play the game today can be quite hard, because the game feels extremely dated. Simple combinations are possible, but the game just doesn't feel as fluid as something like the original Street Fighter II. This Sega CD version is also quite problematic. While its gameplay is faithful to the arcade version, the loading breaks up the pacing, and the endurance and Shang Tsung battles in particular are absolutely painful, as the game completely pauses while the next character jumps in during the endurance matches, and every single time Shang Tsung morphs to another character, the game dips down to about 1 to 4 frames a second. Thankfully, it does feature CD quality music, which was ripped from the arcade version, although a few levels have the music mixed up for some reason. There are some nice bonus features on the disc though, including different renditions of the Mortal Monday TV commercial theme music, one of which would go on to be featured in the 1995 feature film. The Super NES and Genesis versions are definitely the better versions to get, mainly because of the endurance and Shang Tsung battles. They absolutely ruin this version of the game. However, if you can score it cheap, it does make for a nice novelty item, especially thanks to those bonus features. Today you can score HD upscaled versions of this game for more modern platforms, and those are about as close to the arcade original as you can get, short of actually owning the original arcade cabinet. Mortal Kombat will always hold a special place in my heart, even if it hasn't aged nearly as gracefully as some of the other vintage 2D fighters.